The Vandan scout ship Meridian shuddered violently as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Navigation Officer Nal frantically worked the controls, fighting against cascading system failures. Behind him, Captain Lori gripped her command chair, face grim beneath the pulsing emergency lights. "Status report," she demanded. "Primary engines offline, secondary systems failing. Gravitational stabilizers at 12%, Nal reported, voice steady despite the chaos. "We're going down, Captain." The year was approximately 28,000 BCE by future human reckoning. Earth was a Class 3 developing world on the Vandan classification system, a planet with primitive but promising biological life, including early humans, who had just begun developing basic tools and language. The Vandans had merely intended a standard survey mission. "Find us somewhere remote to land," Lori ordered. "Minimize potential contact with the natives." The ship plunged through storm clouds, barely maintaining trajectory control. Science Officer Tev worked furiously at his station, securing research data even as the deck plates buckled beneath him. "There," Nal called, pointing to a sheltered valley nestled between towering mountains. "It's our best option." The Meridian descended with all the grace of a wounded animal, plowing into ancient soil and skidding nearly a kilometer before coming to rest at the base of a limestone cliff. The silence that followed was broken only by the hiss of ruptured conduits and the soft ping of cooling metal. Captain Lori surveyed her crew, 12 specialists, all injured but alive. Medical Officer Pax moved among them, administering emergency treatments. "The ship is beyond repair with our current resources," Engineer Dav announced after preliminary diagnostics. "Communication array is damaged but functional. We can send a distress signal." "How long before rescue?" Lori asked. Dav hesitated. "Given our distance from Vandan space, approximately 30 standard cycles." Tev looked up sharply. 30 cycles? Our supplies won't last 3. "Then we adapt," Lori said firmly. "This planet has resources we can use. We'll establish a base, send our distress signal, and wait." Over the following weeks, the crew created a small compound utilizing the ship's emergency shelter modules. They cataloged local flora and fauna, tested water sources, and observed the primitive humans from a careful distance. The natives seemed curious about the strange lights and structures in the valley but were too fearful to approach. "The signal is away," Communications Officer Kem finally announced. "Now we wait." But their situations soon deteriorated. Local microbes began affecting the crew despite their immunological precautions. Food synthesizers failed. The harsh winter approached. "We have one option," Pax said during an emergency meeting. "The stasis chambers in the medical bay are intact. We can enter suspended animation and wait for rescue." "For 30 cycles?" Engineer Dav looked skeptical. "The chambers are designed for extended use," Pax replied. "The ship's remaining power can maintain them indefinitely if we divert all non-essential systems." Captain Lori weighed their dwindling options. "What about the natives, if they discover the ship?" "I've established security protocols," Security Chief Vel assured her. "The outer hull will appear as natural rock formations. Only a technologically advanced species could detect or access it. And the natives are thousands of years from such advancement," Tev added. With no better alternatives, the decision was made. One by one, the crew entered stasis chambers, their life signs slowing to near imperceptibility as the automated systems took over. The ship, disguised within the mountainside, powered down to minimal functions. Only the distress beacon continued its steady pulse into deep space, a silent plea for rescue across the stars. Outside, early humans occasionally passed through the valley, telling stories about the strange visitors who had briefly appeared then, vanished. Over generations, these tales faded into myth, then legend, then were forgotten entirely as humanity slowly began its long journey toward civilization. The Vandan recovery vessel Horizon decelerated as it approached the third planet of the Sol system. Commander Eris stood on the bridge, watching the blue-green world grow larger on the main view screen. "Preliminary scans complete," reported Navigator Enno. "Atmosphere composition matches our records, but there are significant anomalies." "Explain," Eris ordered, frowning. Science Officer Kella looked up from her station, expression troubled. "The planet shows unprecedented levels of artificial structures and energy signatures. There's evidence of extensive industrialization, orbital installations, and, she paused, artificial satellites. This was unexpected. According to the Vanden Exploration Archives, Earth had been classified as a Class 3 developing world with primitive pre-technological species. The record from the Meridian's last transmission 30,000 years ago indicated nothing beyond early tool-using hominids. Could another spacefaring species have claimed this world? Asked First Officer Mino. Unlikely, Keller replied. The biological signatures match the indigenous species we cataloged previously. Somehow, the native humans have advanced from stone tools to space technology in just 30,000 years. A developmental timeline that should have taken at least 100,000 years by standard evolutionary metrics. Commander Eris approached the view screen, studying the night side of the planet where city lights formed intricate patterns across continents. Have we detected the Meridian's beacon? Yes, Commander. Signal confirmed in the northern hemisphere, Communications Officer Dreen replied. But there's something else. We're detecting thousands of artificial communication frequencies emanating from the planet. The natives appear to have developed global information networks. Impossible, whispered Mino, voicing what everyone was thinking. The recovery mission had been planned as a simple extraction operation. The ancient scout ship Meridian had been presumed lost for millennia, until archive technicians discovered its faint distress signal still transmitting after all these cycles. No one had expected to find a technologically advanced civilization, where there should have been primitive tribes. Activate stealth protocols, Commander Eris ordered. Establish orbit beyond their detection capabilities and continue monitoring their communications. Let's learn what we can before making our presence known. Over the next several days, the Vanden crew observed Earth with growing astonishment. Humans had spread across their planet, building vast cities, transportation networks, and even primitive space stations. They had harnessed nuclear energy, developed global digital communication systems, and were beginning to explore their own solar system. This acceleration is unprecedented, Keller reported during the mission briefing. No species in our records has ever evolved this rapidly without outside intervention. Could the Meridian crew have violated non-interference protocols? Suggested Security Chief Vex. Eris shook his head. Unlikely. The distress beacon indicates they entered stasis shortly after the crash. Something else drove this development. Most troubling were the energy signatures detected from the crash site itself. The Meridian's location was now beneath a sprawling, urban center, and scans indicated unusual technological developments concentrated in that region. They may have found components from the wreckage, Mino suggested. Perhaps they reverse-engineered some of our technology. If that's true, our mission just became significantly more complicated, Eris said grimly. We're no longer retrieving a ship and crew from a primitive world. We're extracting our technology from an emerging spacefaring civilization, one that may have built their technological foundation on our shipwreck. The command staff fell silent, contemplating the implications. Their mission parameters had not accounted for this scenario. Vanden Protocol was clear about avoiding interference with developing worlds, but what happened when those worlds had already been inadvertently influenced? Prepare a first contact protocol, Eris finally ordered. We need to establish diplomatic communications before proceeding with the recovery operation. As the horizon maintained its hidden orbit, Earth rotated below, its inhabitants entirely unaware that the descendants of ancient visitors had returned to reclaim what they had lost millennia ago. Dr. Elena Reyes was halfway through her morning coffee when the world changed forever. The global broadcast interrupted all communication simultaneously. Television, radio, internet, personal devices, bypassing every security protocol as if they didn't exist. The message appeared in every language, perfectly translated and culturally adapted for each region. People of Earth, we come in peace. We are the Vandans, a spacefaring civilization from beyond your solar system. We have monitored your broadcasts and learned your languages to facilitate this communication. We request a meeting with your global representatives regarding a matter of mutual importance. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session within hours. Elena, as director of the International Xenoarchaeology Institute, found herself unexpectedly summoned alongside military leaders, political figures, and scientific authorities. They've specified a meeting location, General Harmon explained. displaying a holographic map. It's a research facility in Norway. Your facility, Dr. Reyes. Elena felt her heart race. For 15 years, she had led excavations at the Oslo Anomaly, an underground structure containing inexplicable materials and energy signatures that defied current scientific understanding. The site had yielded technological breakthroughs that had revolutionized computing, materials science, and energy generation. "They know about the anomaly," she whispered. The delegation that greeted the Vandan representatives consisted of 20 humans, including Elena. They watched, in stunned silence, as the alien craft descended, a sleek vessel that seemed to bend light around its hull. 3 figures emerged, remarkably humanoid but with subtle differences in proportion and movement that marked them as definitively non-human. "I am Commander Eris of the Vandan Recovery Fleet," the central figure announced, voice modulated to human hearing range. "With me are Science Officer Kella and Security Chief Vex." After formal introductions, Commander Eris came directly to the point. "Approximately 30,000 of your years ago, one of our scout vessels crashed on your world. The crew entered stasis chambers to await rescue. We have finally come to retrieve them and what remains of their ship." "The Oslo Anomaly," Elena realized aloud. "It's your ship." "Correct," Kella confirmed. "What you call the anomaly is the Meridian, buried by geological processes over millennia. We detect that its systems remain functional, including the stasis chambers preserving our people." UN Secretary-General Okafor stepped forward. "You must understand our position. This discovery has been the foundation of many of our technological advances for decades. It's part of our heritage now." "We understand," Eris replied diplomatically. "Yet those are our people in stasis. They have families, descendants still living who never knew their fate, and the technology aboard the Meridian is significantly beyond what your civilization should possess at this stage of development." The conversation grew tense as implications became clear. The Vandans wanted not just their crew and ship, but potentially the return of all technology derived from the wreckage, technology now integrated into Earth's infrastructure. "We propose a joint operation," Elena suggested suddenly. "Your expertise combined with our knowledge of the site. We've spent decades studying the anomaly without fully understanding it. You know its systems, but not how they've been altered by time and our interventions." Commander Eris considered this a reasonable proposal. "But understand, our primary mission is the retrieval of our crew. 12 individuals have been suspended between life and death for millennia. Their recovery is non-negotiable." As the meeting concluded, Elena found herself appointed as the primary human liaison for the recovery operation. Walking back to her temporary quarters, she was joined by Kella, the Vandan science officer. "Your species progressed remarkably quickly," Kella observed. "We're still attempting to understand how this happened." Elena smiled slightly. "Perhaps finding your ship gave us a shortcut. Or perhaps humans simply adapt faster than you expected." "Perhaps," Kella replied, though she seemed unconvinced. "Tomorrow we begin the excavation. I hope your people are prepared for what we might find." What remained unspoken was the question that troubled both species. What would happen after the Vandan crew was recovered? Would humans willingly surrender technology that had become fundamental to their civilization? And what did the Vandans really think about a primitive species that had bootstrapped itself into space using salvaged alien tech? The joint excavation team assembled at the Oslo Research Complex on a cold November morning. Temporary structures surrounded the massive dome that had protected the anomaly for decades. Vandan equipment, sleek, almost organic in design, stood alongside human machinery, creating a stark visual contrast between the two technologies. Elena led the human contingent, a carefully selected team of archaeologists, engineers, and physicists who had spent their careers studying the anomaly. Kella commanded the Vandan specialists, experts in recovering lost vessels and operating ancient systems. "Our scans indicate the stasis chambers are located approximately 40 meters beneath the current excavation level," Kella explained, projecting a 3-dimensional blueprint. "The ship's autonomous systems have maintained minimal life support for 30,000 years. But power reserves are critical. We must proceed carefully." The work began immediately. Vandan cutting technology sliced through layers of sediment and rock with astonishing precision while human ground-penetrating radar mapped structural weaknesses. Together they progressed more rapidly than either team could have managed alone. By the third day, they had exposed the upper hull of the Meridian, a dark, iridescent material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Human researchers had never penetrated this outer layer despite decades of attempts. Molecular bonded composite, explained Vanden engineer Trill, running a device over the surface. Self-repairing and designed to mimic local geological formations for camouflage. The ship has been protecting itself all these years. Professor Anwar, Elena's deputy, shook his head in amazement. We always thought this was natural rock with unusual properties. We've been manufacturing a synthetic version for structural applications, calling it Omni Steel. It's used in everything from bridges to spacecraft hulls now. The Vandans exchanged concerned glances. This was exactly the kind of technological contamination their protocols were designed to prevent. Humans adopting advanced materials science without understanding its principles. On the fifth day, they reached the main entry point. Kella approached, with a small device that interfaced with a seemingly featureless section of hull. After a moment, seams appeared in the material, and a doorway irised open with a soft hiss of equalized pressure. Automated systems still functional, Kella noted with surprise. The Meridian's self-repair capabilities exceeded specifications. The interior was remarkably preserved, corridors and chambers in a state of suspended animation, emergency lighting, automatically activating as they proceeded deeper. Human team members moved through the ship with expressions of awe and recognition. This control configuration, whispered Dr. Chen, running his fingers over a console. It's the basis for our neural interface systems. And these power conduits, added Engineer Rodriguez. They're almost identical to our quantum coupling technology. Throughout the ship, the human scientists found the origins of technologies they had developed, or thought they had developed, over generations. Each discovery brought a mixture of wonder and unease as they realized how much of their civilization's advancement had been built upon reverse-engineered Vanden technology. Finally, they reached the stasis chamber. 12 transparent pods lined the walls, each containing a motionless figure suspended in a translucent gel medium. Monitoring systems displayed biological data in flowing Vandan script. Life signs stable but deteriorating, Kella announced, working quickly at the master control station. The system has been gradually failing over the last century. We arrived just in time. Commander Eris joined them, having monitored from the surface. Begin revival procedures for Captain Lori first. The others will follow once we've confirmed the process remains safe after all this time. As the Vanden medical team prepared the revival sequence, Elena studied the faces of the ancient crew. They had come to Earth when humans were still learning to control fire, and had slept through humanity's entire technological evolution. What would they think of what humans had become? Revival sequence initiated, announced a Vandan medical officer. Cellular regeneration commencing. The first stasis pod hummed to life, its translucent covering becoming transparent as the suspension gel drained away. Captain Lori's chest rose and fell with her first breath in 30,000 years as human, and Vanden observers watched in silent witness to a moment that bridged 2 species and countless generations. Captain Lori opened her eyes slowly, consciousness returning in gradual waves. The familiar faces of her rescuers swam into focus, Vandans, like herself, but wearing unfamiliar uniforms. Behind them stood creatures she recognized from ancient survey data. Humans, but not the primitive tool users her crew had observed. These humans stood tall and confident, wearing sophisticated clothing and operating advanced devices. Captain Lori, Commander Eris said formally, I am Commander Eris of the recovery vessel Horizon. You have been in stasis for approximately 30,000 standard cycles. Welcome back. Medical staff helped her sit up as the disorientation subsided. My crew? She asked, voice rough from millennia of disuse. All stable. We're reviving them sequentially to ensure optimal medical monitoring. Over the next several hours, the entire Meridian crew awakened to a reality vastly different from the one they had left behind. They gathered in what had been their ship's mess hall, now a strange hybrid of preserved Vanden equipment and human research apparatus. Engineer Dav stared at a human tablet device with open amazement. This operating system, it's based on our emergency beacons programming architecture. They reversed engineered our technology. Not just reverse engineered, Science Officer Tev added, examining data provided by the human team. They improved upon it in some aspects. Their approach is unorthodox but remarkably effective. Captain Lori met with Elena and the human leadership while her crew received medical attention and orientation. The humans had prepared detailed presentations showing Earth's developmental timeline since the Meridian's crash, the agricultural revolution, industrial development, digital age, and space exploration. Your ship accelerated our technological development by millennia, Elena explained. When researchers first discovered components of the anomaly in the 1950s, we thought they were simply unusual minerals. By the 1970s, we'd identified engineered components. Each discovery led to technological leaps: superconductors, quantum computing, energy systems. You built your civilization on our shipwreck, Security Chief Vell observed, not unkindly. We built it on our own ingenuity, corrected General Harmon. Your technology provided inspiration, but humans developed these applications independently. Later, as the Meridian crew toured a nearby research facility, they witnessed how thoroughly their technology had been integrated into human civilization. What had been emergency equipment on their scout vessel had become the foundation for Earth's infrastructure. They've applied our atmospheric filtration system to combat climate change, noted Medical Officer Pax, studying environmental data, and our medical scanners have been adapted for their physiology. Captain Lori found herself conflicted. Vandan protocols were clear about technological contamination of developing worlds, yet she couldn't deny the remarkable adaptations humans had achieved. Where Vandans would have methodically advanced through carefully planned stages of development, humans had leaped forward in creative, sometimes chaotic bursts of innovation. They don't approach problems the way we do, she observed to Commander Aris. They take technological concepts and apply them in ways we wouldn't consider. Which is precisely the concern, Aris replied. The Vandan Council has reviewed the situation. They're concerned about the uncontrolled spread of our technology. There's already discussion about reclamation protocols. Reclamation? Lori's eyes widened. You cannot be serious. These humans have technologies they shouldn't possess for at least another 50,000 years by natural developmental timelines. The Council fears the implications for this region of space if they continue advancing at this accelerated rate. Before Lori could respond, they were interrupted by Navigator Nal, who had been working with human scientists to understand how Earth's orbital monitoring systems functioned. Captain, Commander, you need to see this, he said urgently. The humans have adapted our navigation algorithms to create something remarkable. On a large display, Nal showed them the Earth's first prototype interstellar probe, scheduled for launch within the year. Its propulsion system clearly showed the influence of Vandan design principles, but reconfigured in ways that even Vandan engineers hadn't considered. They're about to reach the stars, Lori said softly. Because we crashed on their world. Aris's expression remained troubled. The question remains, are they ready for what they'll find there? The Vandan Council's transmission arrived 3 weeks after the recovery operation began. Commander Aris received it in the privacy of the Horizon's communication chamber, but the contents quickly became apparent as Vandan's security forces began securing areas of the excavation site and restricting human access. What's happening? Elena demanded, finding her path to the research lab blocked by Vandan officers. I apologize for the inconvenience, Commander Aris said, approaching with Captain Lori and Science Officer Kella. I've received new directives from our leadership. All Vandan technology must be reclaimed, including derivatives and adaptations developed by humans. Elena stared in disbelief. That's impossible. Your technology is integrated into our entire global infrastructure. You're talking about setting human development back decades, maybe centuries. The Council believes this correction is necessary, Aris explained, though his tone suggested personal reservation. Your species has advanced too rapidly without the proper developmental foundations. The potential dangers. This isn't about danger, Elena interrupted. It's about control. You're afraid of what we might become. The confrontation escalated quickly. Within days, Vandan ships appeared in Earth's orbit, bypassing defense systems as if they didn't exist. world leaders received formal demands for the surrender of all technology derived from Vandan origins. Everything from quantum computers to medical scanning equipment. Humanity responded with unified defiance. If the Vandans wanted their technology back, they would have to dismantle human civilization piece by piece. At the Oslo facility, the revived crew of the Meridian found themselves caught between worlds. They had awakened to discover their crash had fundamentally altered the development of an entire species. Now they were expected to help reclaim what had been lost, potentially devastating the world that had become their inadvertent legacy. "This is wrong," Captain Lori stated during an emergency meeting with her crew and Commander Eris. "These humans didn't steal our technology. They discovered it and built upon it through their own ingenuity. We cannot punish them for our mistake." "The Council's decision is final," Eris replied, though without conviction. "The contamination must be contained before humans expand beyond their solar system." Medical Officer Pax, who had been working closely with human doctors, shook her head. "Have you seen what they've done with our basic medical scanners? They've developed treatments for conditions we haven't solved. Their approach is completely different from ours, sometimes less efficient, but often more innovative." The debate continued for hours until Navigator Nal burst into the room, tablet in hand. "You need to see this," he said urgently. "The humans have activated something in the lower sections of the Meridian, something we didn't know was there." Security feeds showed Elena and her team had accessed a previously undiscovered portion of the ship. They had activated an ancient database, not Vandan in design, but left aboard the Meridian from a previous research mission. "It's the predecessor archive," Science Officer Tev whispered in awe. "We were transporting it for analysis when we crashed." The predecessor archive contained the cultural and technological history of a long-vanished species that had achieved interstellar travel millions of years before the Vandans. The Meridian had been returning with this precious archaeological find when the accident occurred. Elena appeared on the communication system. "We've accessed your archaeological database," she announced. "We know you've been studying this ancient civilization, just as we've been studying your technology. The difference is that they left this knowledge deliberately as their legacy. They wanted it found." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. The Vandans had been following their own version of the same path humans had taken, learning from the technological remnants of those who came before. "We're not so different," Elena continued. "We all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. The question isn't whether humans should have your technology. It's whether both our species can move forward together, learning from each other's approaches." As the Vandan Council's reclamation fleet gathered in Earth orbit, the crew of the Meridian faced a momentous decision. Follow orders that would cripple an emerging civilization, or recognize in humanity a reflection of their own journey among the stars. The Vandan Council representatives arrived on Earth 3 days later, landing amid tight security at the Oslo facility. Elder Maven, the Council's chief diplomat, was accompanied by scientific and military advisors, their expressions severe as they surveyed what they considered a catastrophic breach of developmental protocols. Captain Lori and her crew stood with Commander Eris on one side of the conference room. Elena and Earth's representatives stood on the other. Between them lay the future of two civilizations. "Our position remains unchanged," Elder Maven stated after preliminary introductions. "The technological contamination must be contained. All Vandan-derived technologies must be surrendered," UN Secretary-General Okafor responded firmly. "And our position remains that these technologies are now fundamentally human achievements, regardless of their inspiration. We will not surrender our progress." The impasse might have continued indefinitely if not for Captain Lori's intervention. "Elder Maven, before you make your final decision, there's something you must see." In a bold move, Lori had worked with Elena's team to prepare a comprehensive presentation, not about Vandan technology, but about human innovation. They showcased how humans had taken basic Vandan concepts and developed them in entirely unexpected directions. "They didn't simply copy our work," Lori explained as holographic displays illustrated her points. "They reinvented it. Where we sought optimization through logical progression, they made creative leaps. They solved problems we hadn't even identified." Engineer Dav demonstrated how humans had adapted the Meridian's emergency power systems into renewable energy technologies through approaches no Vandan engineer would have considered. Medical Officer Pax showed how human doctors had combined Vandan's scanning technology with their own medical traditions to create treatments that surpassed both original approaches. Most compelling was Science Officer Tev's analysis of the predecessor archive, alongside human technological development. The predecessors believed that technological diversity was crucial for species survival, he explained. They left their knowledge for others to find, hoping for exactly this kind of adaptive recombination. We Vandans have always approached their artifacts with methodical analysis. Humans approach them with intuitive creativity. Elder Maven listened with growing interest as the presentation continued. You're suggesting that human development, while accelerated by our technology, has produced genuinely new innovations. Not just new innovations, Elena replied. New perspectives. Your species has achieved wonders through careful, logical advancement. Ours moves forward through a mixture of methodical science and creative leaps. Together, we could accomplish so much more than either could alone. The council members conferred privately for hours. When they returned, Elder Maven's expression had softened. We came here believing we needed to correct a mistake. Perhaps instead, we have witnessed an opportunity. The Vandan Council proposes a new approach, not reclamation, but collaboration. The agreement that emerged transformed both civilizations. The Vandans would share their knowledge properly, providing the theoretical foundations humans had missed while reverse engineering their technology. In exchange, humans would share their unique approaches and innovations. A joint research institute was established at the Oslo facility, with the Meridian at its heart. No longer an archaeological site, but a bridge between species. Captain Lori and her crew, displaced from their original time, chose to remain on Earth as cultural ambassadors. We crashed here by accident, Lori told Elena, as they watched human and Vandan scientists working side by side. But perhaps it wasn't entirely misfortune. Your people found our technology and did what Vandans might never have done. You reimagined it. You saw possibilities we missed. And you gave us a shortcut to the stars, Elena replied. But the journey we took with that knowledge was entirely our own. Above them, in Earth orbit, the first joint human-Vandan vessel prepared for its maiden voyage. Its design represented neither human nor Vandan engineering alone, but a synthesis of both approaches, logical precision enhanced by creative adaptation. Its mission, to explore together what neither species could fully appreciate alone. The ship that had crashed on prehistoric Earth had been lost for 30,000 years. What the Vandans found when they finally returned wasn't just their missing vessel and crew, but a reminder of something their methodical civilization had forgotten. That sometimes the most remarkable discoveries come not from careful planning, but from unexpected collisions between worlds. The end.